Okay, we're back in the room with the psychedelic lights and the disabled fan that doesn't work and it's missing a blade. And we're in this room to talk about my thoughts about Angel Studios. My thoughts about Angel Studios have been more and more towards suspecting that they are suspicious, suspecting that they are sus, suspecting that Angel Studios is, in all likelihood, I think, probably some kind of psyop or some kind of propagandistic effort by by our rulers via misdirection. And I say via misdirection because Angel Studios, got to to be known. What brought them into focus in the first place was their release of the film Sound of Freedom on July 4th, 2023, which was a huge hit, and I liked it, and I gave a good review of it. I didn't think it was a great movie, but I thought it was good. I thought it was well done. I thought it was well acted, and I thought it covered a topic that was well worth covering. And the hysterical countervailing response that it received from so many on the left was was wild, and the way in which they just went nuts over this movie and said that it's some kind of right wing, QAnon propaganda. Um, it was it was very eye opening to see their response be thus, because I kind of entertained the notion that when it comes to child trafficking, and child sexual abuse, that different types of people can say, whose politics are different, can say we all stand united against that. But I don't know. I'm wondering about that now. I unfortunately wonder about that lately. But back to Angel Studios, I would say that everything that I've seen from them since then has, number one, not been good, and number two, has made me uh, made me dislike and distrust them more and more. Now, Angel Studios is it's strange because it's marketed as this conservative, company that's an alternative to liberal Hollywood, and that's putting out these faith based movies and so forth, but with a higher quality than you normally would find in so-called faith-based movies or Christian movies in the past, most of which, let's be honest, just aren't have not been very good. And I say that as a Christian myself, specifically a Catholic myself. Um, so I think their ostensible mission statement seemed like a very laudable one. So I was definitely inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt, but everything I've seen from them since then, or two major movies that I've seen since then. One was the one about the Catholic nun from Italy who went to New York. I can't remember the name of that one right now. I can't ever seem to remember the name of it, but I know I reviewed it here. And the most recent one was Bonhoeffer, the biopic about the famous German theologian, um, and martyr. Was Both of those movies were just terrible. They were really bad, and I think I was being a little more kind to the first one than I ought to have been. But Bonhoeffer in particular, I just realized as I was watching it, this is really bad. This does not have, and it's worse than that. It's bad. It's there's something very manipulative about it. There's something, you know, well under the guise of family friendly, conservative, Christian or Christian-esque movies, let's just say, because I think that Angels 2 is actually owned by Mormons, right? Which it's not, whatever the Mormon church is, whatever the LDS are, it's and I am a big and I love the Mormons. I love the Mormon community. I find it very interesting. I think it's cool. I've I am not a Mormon. I have no intention to become one, but this is nothing against Mormons generally, but I do think, as I'll explain in a minute, that it's part of the bait and switch that goes on with these movies. Because if I wanted to watch a movie about a great Catholic saint, I would probably want it to be made by someone who is Catholic, or if not, failing that, barring that, I would want it to be made by someone who is willing to tell the story of this saint in a non-hostile way, in a way that is fair to all of the facts. So, for example, the book that I recently read, called The Song of Bernadette, was apparently written by a man who was never Catholic, who was actually Jewish. But it's a beautiful book, and I recommend it to anyone who wants to get to know the Catholic Saint Bernadette, the one who the visionary who saw the apparition at Lourdes, and of course Lourdes is the water, the spring of water that came forth at the cave outside of the town of Lourdes, has had healing properties for many, many people. This is a well documented thing. Anyway, so anyway, let's get into their latest movie here. This has been a lengthy preamble, but let's talk about their latest movie, and it's one called Homestead. And this is a movie that's apparently based on a book, which I have not read, but the very title, Homestead, all right, that title is going to catch the attention of a certain type of person, a certain I think it's calculated to win the attention of Christians who want to live off the grid, right? And those are homesteaders. Now, Christians who are really hardcore homesteaders, who are really living off the grid, probably aren't going to movies very much, if at all. But in any case, I think the term homestead or homesteader has a positive connotation for the audience that this movie is gearing for, the audience that this movie is marketing itself towards. So the manipulation starts with the very title. Now, what is this movie about? Well, there's a nuclear weapon that gets detonated outside of Los Angeles. And it's not exactly clear why this is done. There's an early scene, it's the very first scene of the movie, where we meet two young men who are on a boat approaching the shore of California, Southern California, and then a helicopter spots them and tells them that they need to that they're not authorized to be there. And then one of them goes down and says, "We have to fulfill our promise. We have to do what was given for us to do." So he jumps to the lower portion of the boat, and there's a nuclear bomb down there. Yeah, a nuclear bomb. And he detonates it. And so it turns out these two guys are, I guess, suicide bombers of some kind. It's not clear whether whether they're Central American, Mesoamerican in ethnicity, or if they're Middle Eastern. But in any case, they seem to have been put on the suicide mission. So one suspects they're jihadi of one kind or other. So that's how the movie begins. That's the catastrophe that sets in motion all of the events that follow. So after that, there's there's chaos in Los Angeles, and people are looting stores, and all this stuff's gone down, and whatever. But it turns out there's a certain group of people. There's a few families that have connections to this place that's the homestead of the title, and it's where this family lives. That is off the grid, but they have this beautiful large house, and they have a ton of property, and I think it's supposed to be somewhere in Northern California, I believe. And everybody who's connected with this homestead are military, or special forces. They have all these connections to high-ranking military people, and there's some guys who look like they're Green Berets. I think they're supposed to be Green Berets, like the elite military guys, and so they come with them to this place, and there's also a few families that end up going there, and all of these families, again, what they have in common is this connection to the homestead, and that connection is via a connection to the military, and they have a couple of them have a direct communication with the State Department. So you see how things are being framed here. These in real life, America, the homesteaders tend to be the types of people who are suspicious of the government, and who would not want to have anything to do with high-ranking people in the government, in the State Department, or elsewhere, with these federal bodies that they would tend to look upon with suspicion. After all, it was the feds who went after the family at Ruby Ridge. It was the feds who went after the Branch Davidians in Waco, and there have been a few other events like that have solidified this dislike of the feds. So and their overreaching, and their tendency to be brutal and oppressive. But in this movie, the people who are a part of this homesteading effort all seem to be connected to the Fed, to the military, to the State Department, etc., and so on. So you've got this kind of, again, a bait and switch happening, and also there what we find out through shortwave radio broadcast, because after this nuclear weapon detonated in L.A., there's been a lot of chaos across the country, and we find out that the whole East Coast, the power grid on the East Coast, has all been shut down because of a cyber attack from Russia. Yes, a cyber attack from Russia. Russia. So Russia are the bad guys. These jihadis who are and like who represent some rogue state somewhere in alliance with Russia, who, and it's not, it's sort of stated as a given that yeah, the the East Coast has been cyber attacked by Russia, and all the power grid is down because of Russia. So, and we have one of the main characters, like the most like conservative coded character that there is. I don't know the actor's name. You'll recognize his face. I think he's been in some other Angel Studios movies, or maybe at least one other. And I know he's an actor who's known for being conservative and religious, and quit doing movies when or refused to do movies where he had to kiss a woman who wasn't his wife. I remember reading about this, and so this and in this movie he's like the patriarch of this homestead, and he's always wearing his cowboy hat. Wherever he is, he's got his cowboy hat on. He's the man of the house. He's the head of the family, and so forth. But we'll soon see where the movie goes with that. But anyway, so he says he has a line where he says, "Well, so Russia cyber attacked us. Surprise, surprise." So we have the conservative character, the really, and there's lots of other guys who are very conservative coded. The macho Green Beret guys in their uniforms, and one of the dads of another family has this craggy face, and he's like real hard ass, and he's a good guy, but he's like, hey, you need to, he's really tough on his sons, and yeah, so all these masculine sort of archetypes, but they're confirming these things like, yeah, the State Department can be trusted, the military can be trusted, the basically the apparatus of the United States government, they are the good guys. And if we're going to be attacked, it's going to be from without. It's going to be from some rogue state, with jihadists who detonated a nuclear bomb, working in coordination with Russia. So you see how things get turned on their head, don't you? Because the typical homesteader, the typical right-wing type of person, the homeschooling, homesteading, church-going, God-fearing, the man's the head of the household, and the woman does domestic tasks and all that. Like the typical way, those kinds of people and families would be, the more expected way, the way in which that would correspond more to reality today in 2024 would be to say, these people would not trust their own government, and they would be very leery of some story of, well, it's actually the Russians, or it's the Russians who are really after us, and it's the jihadis who are really after us. These are, we've if it were around 2000, 2001, 2002, then we would believe that kind of stuff. But these kinds of people have gotten wise to those kinds of to being sold those kinds of stories. But in the movie, they want us to sort of turn that back on its head again and say, oh well, let's trust the government again, and let's trust the feds, and again, let's see the real bad guys as the as you know, being from these foreign governments. Now, another aspect of this movie is its incipient feminism, and another aspect of this movie that is manipulative, and I think a part of propagandistic, in a sneaky sort of way, is what I would call the movie's incipient feminism. Now, it's nothing like you would see in a Hollywood movie, where, like, with a boss babe who just psychologically castrates all the men, dominates them like a 100-pound model who beats up 280-pound muscle men, and that kind of thing. Captain America? No. What's her name? Captain something. You know what I'm talking about. The girl boss. The girl boss archetype that's come under such heavy fire recently. No. But in this movie, what happens is you got this situation where there's this homestead, and there's a problem because the people who have been taken into the homestead are all contributing. They're doing their part, with to grow the crops and to tend to whatever needs to be tended to, or the Green Beret guys are there to defend the property, and then you have this growing number of families that are parked outside of the homestead but are not invited in. They're not asked to come in because the idea is, if we can't just let this be a free-for-all for everybody. We've got a limited number of resources. Hopefully sometime soon this crisis will sort itself out. But in the meantime, we've got to take care of our own. And this is a place where we can look after our own and help our own. And that is to say, those who are affiliated with this group and their families. But there are other, families, and they're nice people who are parked outside, and they're starving and outside of the gates of the compound. And so there's this dispute emerges between the homesteader guy and his wife, and it's like between the two main couples. The guys are saying, look, we got to just, we have a finite number of resources. We've got to protect our own. We can't just let everybody in. If we are a little bit generous, then more and more people are going to keep coming, and we've got to, if we want to survive, we've got to this has got to be just for us. We don't wish ill on these other people, but they just need to find somewhere else to go during this time of crisis. But the wives are saying, oh, but we need to take care of them, and God says to take care of our fellow man, and blah, blah, blah. And so what happens when, okay, mild spoiler, when Mr. Homesteader, in his cowboy hat, has a face-off with a bunch of local police types, led by a local bureaucrat type. Now, this is a sort of instantiation of the archetype, the sort of conservative archetype of the state bearing down on people's private property and wanting to, asking why do they wanting to have an inventory of all of their everything that they own and all of the guns that they have, and the homesteader guy saying, no, this is private property, you're not allowed inside, not without a search warrant, at least. So there's this face off, but again, what I think has to be understood about this is these are local types. These are not feds. This is some busybody bureaucrat, in the local area, representing the town or the municipality that's the closest, and with this SWAT team that again is from the local police force. So there's almost a face-off, but in the midst of everything that happens, Mr. Homesteader gets shot, and he's out. He's like in a coma for a while, and it's thought that he might be dead. He might be dead or dying. During the time that he's out, his wife takes over. And what does his wife do? She says, oh, you know what? I believe in miracles. I think we can, God, we're praying, and of course, because this is a faith-based movie, and that's part of the bait and switch, anyway. And so, we're going to make the loaves and fishes happen. The loaves and fishes being a reference to the miracle in the Gospels, where Jesus invites hundreds of people to come and eat a very small number of loaves and fishes, which is, I can't remember the exact number, but he ends up feeding thousands of people, and they're all full and they're all satisfied, even though the amount of food that they had was really not enough was only enough to feed like maybe 15 or 20 people. So that's the miracle of the loaves and fishes. And what she discovers is, through working in the greenhouse, what she and the other lady discover is, wow, there are these amazing things we can do to help grow crops in an unlimited way that we'd never known about before. And it's just some mumbo jumbo. I don't understand it. I don't know if anybody understands it, or if it makes any sense at all. But what happens is they do the impossible. They're able to cultivate all this food, and then that makes it so that they can let everybody in, all these people who were refugees before. They call them refugees? All these people who were refugees before, now we're going to let them all in, and they'll all be a part of, this homestead, this compound, and there's food for all, and nobody has to go hungry, and nobody has to wait outside the gate forlornly while and be excluded. And all this gets accomplished while the main guy is down for the count. When he wakes up, he sees that his wife has created this paradise. She's recreated the loaves and the fishes, and it's through her faith that the place that they've been able to save all these people. So the movie sets up this dichotomy between the men who are like very like um, logic based, but also just constantly saying no to stuff, constantly carping about how, well, we're running out of food, we don't have enough food, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, blah blah blah. He's sitting there, with his chalk, writing on the his diagram board about how these crops are going to run out and we'll all be starving by April or May at the latest. But once he's gone, once he's out of the game, he's in a coma, his wife, in his stead, because she has faith, because the women have faith, and they know what it's like to have mercy. And at one point she asked him, "Is this an ark or is this a fortress?" And I don't know. It seems to me like it was a fortress. But even if it was an ark, that you could, that they didn't just let anybody on the ark. It seemed like the correct answer to that question was supposed to be, it should be an ark, but you've made it into a fortress. But anyway, so we have some very subtle, maybe not so subtle, open borders propaganda. Like, let's just let people in, and God will provide for everybody, and we'll all be fine. Um, when really the case, I mean, the issue with open borders is not whether there'll be enough food for everybody. At least that's not the case right now. It's it's other things too. We we need to be able to take care of our own before. Besides, who are we letting in? What do we trust them? And shouldn't they have to go through the proper channels to become citizens and all that? Here in the movie, it's just like, well, we'll just let everybody who's needy come into the homestead, and everything will be fine. And that's about it. So all these things combined, plus a couple of other little subtle things, like the fact that one of the families is mixed race, and there's a budding romance between uh, a black boy and a white girl. Uh, and I again, I've said this before, but just to clarify, I don't have I'm not, you know, I'm not opposed on principle to interracial dating or interracial marriage. I just think when you see it in a movie, when you see it show up in a movie like this, it's there for social conditioning purposes. Because most of the time it's not the norm. It's not it's it happens, but it's generally speaking not the norm. So if it's going to be in a movie, I won't say always, but often it's there for social conditioning purposes. So that's the least of the problems, though, that I have with this movie Homestead. This movie Homestead makes me again feel more and more sure that there's something not to be trusted about Angel Studios. So that's all.